Hi, I'm Jen from House One, and today I'm showing how to make a round storage ottoman. At first glance, this project might seem very complicated, but with a simple frame and the use of a staple gun instead of a sewing machine, it actually comes together much easier than you might think. And I am not an upholsterer by any stretch of the imagination, so if I can complete this DIY, so can you. To first build the frame, mark out 3 circles on a piece of 1/2 inch plywood. To draw a perfect circle, drill 2 holes spaced 15 inches apart in a scrap board. Nail through 1 hole and then insert a pencil in the opposite hole to outline the circle. Repeat this process to draw the circles that will create the base, top ring, and lid. Inside one of the circles, mark an inner ring and a smaller circle that will become the base of the inner storage area. Using a jigsaw, cut the outlines apart. Drill a hole through the center of each circle, and then insert a screw to align the circles and stack them together to cut all 3 circles at one time. Make a registration mark on the circles to note where they align, and then finish by cutting the ring and trimming the smaller circle. Mark roughly equal sections around the circle to help position the 12 boards that will run vertically between the base and the top ring. Now cut the 2x3 boards into sections. Apply glue to one end of each board, and then screw through the top ring and into the board to secure it in place. Repeat this process until all of the boards are attached to the top ring, and then flip the assembly over and repeat to attach the boards to the base. To sturdy the round frame, I want to cover up the vertical boards with something rigid, but I need it to be flexible enough that it curves around the circular shape. Now, I found a couple options at the craft store, but it was actually a wall panel that I found at the home center that I think is going to do the trick. To prep the panel, mark the height of the vertical boards, and then cut 2 strips to this width to cover the inside and outside of the ottoman. I'm using tin snips because they're a little easier on my hands, but scissors could work too. While you're set up to cut the panel, trace one of the large plywood circles onto the panel, and cut it out as well. If you're like me and you don't have enough to make one full circle, cut 2 pieces that will overlap by 1 inch or so and set them aside for later. Now, using hot glue and staples, attach the first strip along the outside of the ottoman, starting and ending on a vertical board. Wrap the base in batting, first stapling it to the underside of the base, and then pulling it up and over the top ring. Now we can turn our attention to the lid to get it prepped and ready for batting. First, mark a grid of horizontal and vertical lines spaced 4 inches apart, starting from the center and working your way outward. Again, starting from the center, mark every other crosshair as the location of a tufted button. To save money on foam for the top of the ottoman, I'm layering 3 inexpensive 1 inch thick pieces of foam and joining them with foam adhesive. Once dry, trace the outline of the lid onto the foam and cut the shape using a serrated knife. If you have an electrical carving knife, I've heard that works much better, but this kitchen knife was all I had on hand. On the lid, drill holes at the location of each button. Place the lid onto the foam and use a nail to poke through the board and into the foam to transfer the marks. Using a drill driver fitted with a hole saw attachment, drill through the foam to create a space for the buttons to more easily sink into the foam. To help the hole saw cut without binding on the foam, spray it with a lubricant. All I had on hand was cooking spray, but it worked fine and was a game changer to help the bit cut more smoothly through the foam. As the last step of prep before the batting, use the serrated knife to cut slits from the outside buttons to the edge of the foam to later help direct the fold as you wrap the fabric. Now spray the board with adhesive and set the foam in place, making sure to keep the holes in the foam aligned with the holes in the board. Spray the foam with adhesive and then place the batting over the foam. Work the batting into the holes to prep the diamond pattern. Flip the lid over and secure the batting with staples. With all of our pieces prepped and covered in batting, it's now time to install the final fabric, and we'll start with the base. Cut the fabric into a manageable strip that's wide enough to stretch from the underside of the base up over the top ring. Roughly position the fabric on the base, aligning the end with a vertical board. Spray the first section with adhesive and then secure the end of the fabric in place around the top ring, underside of the base, and along the edge. Now flip the fabric back and spray another section with adhesive. Smooth the fabric over the side and then staple it in place to the underside of the base. Set the ottoman upright and smooth the fabric over the top ring. Group and fold or pleat the excess fabric every few inches. I made a mark on a block to grab for reference, so I keep my pleats consistently spaced. Staple the fabric along the underside of the ring and front edge of the vertical board. Continue by spraying the next section with adhesive, stapling the underside, and pleating and stapling along the top ring. If you need to add a second strip of fabric, place it face down against the end of the attached fabric. Cut a thin strip of wall panel to the height of the ottoman to create a straight edge. Staple it in place, apply adhesive, add a strip of batting to smooth it out, and then fold over the fabric and complete the run. To finish the final edge, repeat this process, spraying a bit of adhesive, folding the plastic strip into the fabric, cutting away any excess at the top, and then securing the fabric to the top and bottom to hold it in place. To line the inside of the ottoman, first carry a mark of the location of the boards out toward the center of the base, so that you'll know where they're located once this area is covered. Next, staple a strip of black fabric along the inside of the ring. Place the remaining strip of plastic inside the ottoman and secure it to the surrounding vertical boards. Trim off the excess and attach the end to a vertical board. Now flip the black fabric over the plastic, pulling it taut towards the base, and stapling it to the base tightly against the plastic. Now flip the ottoman over and position the foot plates. Mark the center hole of each plate and drill a hole so that the threaded rod of the foot can extend into the thickness of the plywood. Screw the plates into place. To cover the rough edges of the fabric, place a black piece of fabric over the base. Tuck the edges under and secure it with staples along the edge. Make a slit at the location of the center hole in each foot plate, and then securely screw each foot into a plate. You can now flip the ottoman upright. To create a base for the inside of the ottoman, place the small round circle of plywood on a black piece of fabric. Pull the fabric around the edges and secure it with staples. Cut away any excess. Flip the board over and place it into the base of the ottoman to cover the exposed edges of the fabric sides. It's now time to apply the final fabric to the lid of the ottoman, and we're going to be tufting it using buttons. Now you can either purchase buttons online or you can cover your own buttons using a simple DIY kit like I did. If you're using a DIY kit, cut small circles of fabric, place one in the holder, place the top of the two-part button into the holder, and wrap the fabric around its edges. Cover them with the base and then snap the pieces together. I recommend lightly tapping this piece with a hammer to save your fingers the stress of trying to push the pieces together. Pop the button out of the holder and then tie on a long piece of waxed tufting thread. With the buttons assembled and threaded, lay the fabric for the lid face down and mark a vertical and horizontal line centered on the fabric. From there, mark a grid with slightly larger spacing than that of the lid to allow the fabric and buttons to pull down into the foam. I'm using a spacing of 7.5 inches. Thread the button line through the needle, and then push the needle through the fabric at the centermost crosshair. You can now push the needle down through the batting, foam, and the hole in the board. Push the button down into the foam, and then flip the board and pull the line. To secure the line, staple it in a zigzag pattern onto the board. Continue working your way outward, flipping the fabric up to locate the crosshair, and using your fingers to work the buttons down into the foam before flipping and securing the line against the underside of the board. As you pull down the surrounding buttons, work the excess fabric into a fold to create the diamond pattern. When you reach the edges, Smooth the excess over the edge and secure it with staples on the underside, using the cleared grooves to direct the folds. Once complete, cut away the excess fabric. To add a more defined edge to the lid of the ottoman, I'm going to be attaching a cord detail. Now typically you would sew this into the fabric and then wrap it around the piece. But since I am completely committed to making this a no-sew project, I'm going to be using adhesive and tucking it in and then stapling it in place. I've cut a strip of fabric and I'm applying spray adhesive and tucking the cord inside the fold. When you reach a seam, apply adhesive, fold over the rough end, and continue on. Now lay the cord along the edge of the lid and secure it with staples pushed as close to the edge as possible to hold the cord in place. At the final seam, clip the cord to length, fold over the rough end, join the pieces, and staple it in place. To cover the underside of the lid without adding any thickness, I'm adding the circular wall panel cutout from earlier. First, use hot glue to join the two cut pieces. Next, place the circle onto the underside of the lid and trim it to fit inside the corded edging. Once sized, place the panel onto a piece of black fabric. Apply hot glue along the edge and then pull the fabric onto the glue. Smooth it with a block to avoid burning your fingers on the hot glue. Cut away the excess fabric and then flip over the panel. Apply spray adhesive to the center of the underside of the lid and hot glue along the edges. Place the panel onto the underside of the lid and smooth it into place. Now you can move your ottoman to its final destination and stand back and admire your hard work. The finished look of the rounded exterior and the handy storage inside make this the perfect addition to any space. I hope you enjoyed this project. For more easy woodworking and home design projects, visit the House One channel on thisoldhouse.com. I'm Jenn Largesse. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. This Old House has got a video for just about every home improvement project, so be sure to check out the others. And if you like what you see, click on the subscribe button to make sure that you get our newest videos right in your feed.